The office lights turned on by themselves. Officer Daniel Brooks froze in the middle of the hallway, his hand halfway to his radio. The abandoned office building had been without power for years. Everyone in the city knew that. Yet every light, from the lobby to the far end of the floor, flickered to life at the same time. Behind Daniel, Officer Mark Reynolds whispered, "That's not possible." Then the elevator dinged. Daniel's heart slammed hard against his chest. The elevator doors at the end of the hall slid open slowly, making a long metal scream as they parted. Something was standing inside. It was tall, too still. Its face was hidden in shadow, but Daniel could see its hands hanging low, fingers stretched longer than normal. "Police!" Daniel shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. "Show your hands." The thing didn't move. The lights flickered again, and suddenly, the elevator was empty. Mark swore under his breath. "Did you see that?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, I saw it." Then the radio on Daniel's shoulder crackled on by itself. A calm voice spoke through the static. "Thank you for coming. We've been waiting." Daniel ripped the radio off his shoulder and stared at it. The building was supposed to be empty, but something inside had just answered them. Daniel swallowed hard and forced himself to breathe. "Okay," he said quietly. "We clear the floor. Then we leave." Mark nodded, but his face was pale. They moved forward together, boots crunching on broken glass and old papers. The office smelled wrong, like dust, metal, and something sour underneath it all. A sign on the wall still read Westridge Financial, Floor 6. Daniel remembered the case. Years ago, people worked here. Then one night, the office shut down without warning. No layoffs. No notices. Everyone just stopped coming. Some said there was a fire. Some said there was an accident. Some said nothing at all. They were here now because neighbors reported lights turning on at night. Footsteps. Voices. Daniel stopped at a cubicle. A coffee mug sat on the desk, cracked but still upright. Papers were neatly stacked. A computer screen flickered faintly blue, even though it wasn't plugged in. Mark leaned closer. "This looks fresh." Daniel nodded. "Like someone just left." A printer started running on its own. Paper slid out slowly, one page at a time, hitting the floor with soft slaps. Daniel picked one up. Printed in black ink were the words, "You are late." Mark's breath caught. "This isn't funny." The lights dimmed again. The temperature dropped so fast Daniel could see his breath. Then they heard footsteps. Not above them. Not below them. Behind them. Daniel spun around, gun raised. The hallway they came from was gone. In its place was a long office corridor that hadn't been there before. Doors lined the walls, each one closed. At the far end stood a glass conference room. Inside it sat people. Dozens of them. Men and women in office clothes, sitting perfectly still around a long table. Their faces were gray. Their eyes were open. All of them were staring straight at Daniel and Mark. Mark whispered, "Those are people." The conference room door opened slowly. One of the figures stood up. It smiled. "We called for help," it said in a flat voice. "But you brought something better." The doors behind Daniel and Mark slammed shut. The lights went out, and in the darkness, something grabbed Daniel's ankle. Daniel screamed as something cold wrapped around his ankle. He kicked hard and felt his boot hit nothing but air. The grip vanished. He fell forward and caught himself on the floor, breathing fast. Mark grabbed his arm. "Get up! Get up!" The lights flickered back on, but they were dim now, weak and yellow. The long corridor was still there. The conference room was still at the end, and the people inside were still watching. Daniel pulled himself up. His leg burned where the thing had grabbed him, but when he looked down, there was no mark. No handprint. Nothing. "That thing touched me," he whispered. Mark shook his head. "I didn't see anything." The printer started again. Paper slid out, one page after another, faster this time. The sound echoed down the hall. Daniel walked closer and read the words as they printed. "Welcome back. You never left. We kept your desks ready." Mark grabbed Daniel's shoulder. "We need to leave. Now." Daniel raised his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Brooks. We need backup at Westridge Financial. Something is very wrong." Only static answered. Then a voice came through. "Not dispatch." It sounded old. Calm. Tired. "You are on floor 6, the voice said. "There is no exit." The radio went dead. Daniel looked at Mark. "We're not alone." They moved toward the conference room slowly. Daniel didn't want to, but something pulled him forward. Like the building itself wanted them there. The glass walls were covered in handprints now, pressed from the inside. Faces leaned close to the glass, eyes wide, mouths moving silently. Daniel could hear whispers. Soft. Overlapping. Stay. Sit. Work. Mark pointed to the floor. Look. Nameplates sat on the conference table inside. Each one faced a chair. Daniel's chest tightened when he read them. Daniel Brooks. Mark Reynolds. Mark backed away. No. No, that's not real. The conference room door opened again. A woman stepped out. She wore a neat gray suit. Her hair was pulled back tight. She smiled the way someone smiles at work, polite and empty. Meeting is starting, she said. Please take your seats. Daniel shook his head. We don't work here. The woman tilted her head. You will. The lights went out again. When they came back on, the hallway was gone. Daniel and Mark stood inside the conference room. The door was closed behind them. The people around the table turned their heads at the same time. Daniel's chair slid backward on its own. Mark's too. They slammed into them, forcing them to sit. Daniel tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't move. His arms felt heavy. His chest felt tight. The woman walked to the front of the room and tapped the table. Attendance, she said. One by one, the people around the table spoke. Here. 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 Their voices were flat. Dead. Then the woman looked at Daniel. Daniel Brooks. Daniel tried to stay silent. His mouth opened anyway. Here, he said. Fear exploded inside him. The woman turned to Mark. Mark Reynolds. Mark shook his head hard. No. 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 His lips trembled. Hey, he whispered. The room felt colder. The woman smiled wider. Good. Now we can begin. The walls changed. The glass darkened. The handprints pressed harder. The people around the table began to twitch. Their heads bent at strange angles. Their fingers tapped fast on invisible keyboards. Daniel felt something crawl up his spine. What is this place? He asked. The woman leaned close. This is where unfinished work stays. The lights above them burst, showering sparks. The people around the table stood up at once. And Daniel realized something terrible. They weren't standing to leave. They were standing to grab them. Daniel's chair scraped backward as he finally broke free. He shoved himself up just as hands reached for him from every side. Cold fingers brushed his sleeve. Another hand grabbed Mark's shoulder and pulled him back toward the table. Mark! Daniel shouted. Mark struggled, panic all over his face. They won't let go. The woman at the front of the room raised her hand. Order, she said calmly. The room froze. The people stopped moving. Their hands hung in the air, fingers bent like broken tools. The silence was so deep Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. The woman turned to Daniel. You are disrupting the workflow. Daniel backed away, shaking his head. This isn't real. You're not real. She smiled. Neither is the time you think you're in. The walls began to change again. The glass faded, turning into solid gray concrete. The ceiling lowered slowly, pressing down like the room was closing its mouth. Daniel grabbed Mark's arm and pulled hard. This time, it worked. Mark stumbled free, gasping. Run! Daniel yelled. They bolted for the door. It didn't open. Daniel slammed into it with his shoulder. Pain shot through his arm. The door didn't move. Behind them, the people began to move again. Not walking. Sliding. Their feet didn't lift from the floor. They glided closer, heads tilted, mouths opening and closing like they were breathing in something that wasn't air. The woman's voice filled the room. You came to investigate, she said. So investigate. The floor beneath Daniel's feet vanished. He fell. Not down. Sideways. Daniel slammed into a cubicle wall and collapsed onto a carpeted floor. He rolled and pushed himself up, dizzy. The office looked normal again. Rows of desks. Computers. Papers. Mark groaned nearby. He was alive. Lights buzzed overhead. Phones rang. Printers hummed. The office sounded full. Too full. Daniel looked around. People were working, typing, walking, talking softly, but none of them blinked. Daniel grabbed a passing man by the arm. Hey, you need to get out. The man turned slowly. His eyes were gray. You're late, he said. Find your desk. Daniel felt something tug at his belt. He looked down. An ID badge now hung there. His name. His photo. Mark looked down at his own chest and started to panic. Daniel, they gave me a badge. The woman appeared beside them without walking. This is your floor now, she said. You answered the call. Daniel shook his head. We're police officers. She nodded. You were. The office lights dimmed. The sound of typing grew louder, faster, like rain hitting metal. Daniel noticed something on the far wall. A window. It showed the outside street. Police cars. Flashlights. Officers searching the building. Daniel ran toward the window and slammed his hands against it. We're in here. 6th floor. No one looked up. Mark joined him, pounding the glass. Help us. The woman stood behind them. They cannot see you, she said. You are at work. Daniel felt his body slow. His arms felt heavy again. No, he whispered. Not like this. He reached for his radio. It buzzed to life. Static. Then a voice. Officer Brooks, status check. Daniel's eyes widened. Dispatch. We're trapped on floor 6. There was a pause. Then dispatch said calmly, there is no floor 6. The radio clicked off. The lights went out. When they came back on, Daniel stood alone. Mark was gone. So was the woman. Daniel sat at a desk. A computer screen glowed in front of him. On it were the words, incoming call, officers required. Daniel felt his mouth move. Here, he said. Somewhere below, new officers pushed open the front doors, and the lights on the 6th floor turned on again.